All right, here we go. Brendan Sullivan commits to the Hawks. This is Hawk Talk on Melrose. I said on the last episode that there is a chance that Tyler and I would be back relatively quickly because there was a potential quarterback in the work, and that was Brendan Sullivan that we talked about, or that I talked about over the weekend. And now he is officially committed to Iowa. Huge news for Iowa. We went from essentially having a horrible quarterback room to now all of a sudden, hey, our quarterback room is not bad now with two guys that have Big Ten experience. Not only that, but starting experience with him and Cade McNamara.
Yeah, man, I'm so stoked. Obviously, maybe the biggest, portal news yet, obviously for the Hawks anyway, and a guy like Brendan Sullivan, who, like you said, is an instant upgrade in the quarterback room. What a few weeks it's been, man. Just getting rid of the old and in with the new, right? Like I'm so happy. I think this makes everyone in the quarterback room better, and you get a guy who I think can compete for the starting job, and not only that, but just obviously take over if worst comes to worst, if Cade gets hurt or something like that. He's a guy that's capable, in my opinion, of stepping in and running this offense.
Yeah, I think last year, the problem with Iowa last year was you had a guy in Cade McNamara who, well, number one, it didn't help that he got hurt literally on Kids Day, which was in the middle of August. And at that point, we were like, oh boy, is he going to be okay for week one? And then we get to week one, and you could tell he was not even
like they were
close to
downplaying
100%.
it, and then it just, you knew it was a bigger deal then.
Yeah, it's like, no, this guy is clearly hurt, and every little hit or run. Do you remember the Penn State game when he did that like rollout? And he had green grass ahead, but he
gave himself
couldn't run.
Essentially. Yeah.
And so up until like he actually got hurt, every time he got hit or something like that, we would kind of like hold our breath, like, okay, is he okay? And I think for us, the biggest reason was because we knew we had nobody behind him. Like if he gets hurt, like this season's over with. So with Brendan Sullivan, you have a guy now where if Cade gets hurt, now, and this is if Cade even starts, because I do think Brendan Sullivan's going to push for that starting job. I do think ultimately it's going to be Cade. Like I think Cade McNamara is going to start as long as he stays healthy. But just having a backup option of Brendan Sullivan is massive. Like it is huge knowing, okay, if Cade gets hurt, we don't have to hold our breath anymore. Like we can go into a game feeling pretty relaxed that, okay, yeah, Cade's out there. If he does get hurt, let's hope he doesn't.
Yeah.
We at least have a backup. And I think for Brendan, I think the pitch was this. I think it was pretty simple. Okay, you have 2 years left, right? So you're going to probably be the starter in 2025, hands down, going to be probably the starter next year. But this year, you're going to battle out with Cade. Cade obviously has the edge because he's been in the program now for a few years. And so he has the edge, but you're going to battle it out. And if you don't start, well, there's probably a good chance that you might at some point this season, given Cade's history of getting hurt. And if not, well, come next year, you'll be the man. And clearly he was okay with that.
Yeah, and I think, it helps when you've got Tim Lester, who, was early on a guy like Brendan Sullivan, trying to get him back in the days of, what was it, Western Michigan at the time?
Yeah.
Or was that somewhere else? Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, they have a history. They know each other well. I think Iowa's offense and what we do, fits what he does. He's more athletic and can move. Which is always a plus. I feel like we never have that. So I'm not saying he's a quote unquote dual threat guy, but I mean, the guy is mobile enough to make plays with his legs. And that's something that, to be honest, Cade hasn't proven that he can do either. So I agree with you. I mean, I just think, dude, like where we were, I mean, where we were just a few weeks ago and to now, it's a night and day difference in the QB room. And, I think you sent me a tweet and it's like, a lot of credit goes up to Tim Lester for what he's done in a short time of just being here and changing what we're doing, and not just, not like where Brian's like, well, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to do it better. Right. This is no, he's overhauling the offense. He's overhauling some of the players. Like he's changing it. He's trying something different. And that's, I think, for us fans, what we've wanted to see for a while now. And he's doing it.
It makes you really wonder if Brian Ferentz was still a coach at Iowa. If number one, we'd still have Deacon Hill
me this.
on the roster. And if number two, I mean, number two, this isn't even number two because it wouldn't have happened. If Brian Ferentz was still the offense coordinator slash quarterbacks coach, Brandon Sullivan does not come to Iowa. I can promise you that right now. Um, but I do wonder if Deacon Hill would still be on the roster or not. Like, I don't know that, but like, I have a feeling that he probably would still be on the roster. So yes, you said it perfectly with Tim Lester, giving him credit, comes in, and this was way later than normal, right? Like most programs had their new offense coordinator figure out like back in December, comes in like end of January, early February, takes what he has at that point, right? Like there's really not much you can do at that point. You're already into February, spring ball's a month out. You can't, the transfer portal's pretty much closed at that point. And so he kind of took what he had. And yeah, after spring ball, he evaluated where everybody was at. Uh, yeah, he knows that Deacon Hill, I'm convinced that was probably one of the worst quarterbacks he's probably like had a coach in the collegiate level. Uh, and I don't know if it was him or somebody told Deacon, like, man, like it'd probably be best if you move on. And then to go out and get Sullivan, a guy like you said, recruited out of Western Michigan. Sounds like he went to Sullivan's house last week for an in-home visit, just start kind of building that connection up. And then Sullivan comes to Iowa, has a visit, and commits the day of the visit, which tells me that the visit went extremely well. It's huge, and you have to give all the credit to Tim Lester, what he's done in that small of a time frame.
Yeah,
I'll admit it. Like right away when Kirk hired Lester, I wasn't very happy because I wanted the other guy, which I can't even think of his name now. Kevin Johns.
Yeah.
And yeah, Kevin Johns. And I was, like I said, I was pretty annoyed by what Kirk did. I was like, of course, he's taking Lester. That the hot name was Kevin Johns, but man, like, and I know we haven't played in a game yet, so we don't really know. But everything so far, though, everything from the press conferences to this to everything, he's won me over so far. I'm really happy with what Lester's done, and I'm honestly like pumped that like we were able to get him. And like I said, I couldn't have said that maybe when he first got hired. I was pretty pissed about it. I think most Iowa fans were kind of mad. I think then as the kind of the weeks went on, you started kind of like, okay, let's give this guy a chance. And now I'm to the point where it's like I really like this guy a lot, and I'm glad we have him. So Brendan Sullivan stats, people aren't wondering. So last year, 2023, he didn't play the entire year. He started in 4 games because I don't know what their starting quarterback was. Bryant, or forgot what his name was. But starting quarterback got hurt, so then Sullivan had to play. And one of the games he actually played was against Iowa at Wrigley Field. Didn't have that good of a game, but what quarterback does have a good game versus Iowa? The week prior, though, he had a really good game against Maryland. And if you want to go watch highlights of this guy, go watch that game, and you'll be like, okay, yeah, this guy might be a decent backup for us. Had great stats, and then 2022, decent stats as well, played in a few games. Overall, in 2 years, playing in a very limited amount of games, completed 69% of his passes, which was the last time we had a quarterback that completed that. I mean, when was the last time we had a quarterback over 60%? Deacon Hill was 48%. So 69%, 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, ran the ball, 257 yards total, and 2 touchdowns running. So he can run the football. He's not like a great runner, but he can definitely run the football. And just like some of the highlights that I've watched and some of the film that I've watched, like it almost kind of seems like he when the pocket's collapsing, he's kind of, that's his like first thing, like he's trying to get out of the pocket and trying to run, which when's the last time we had somebody like that, right? So his passer rating, though, I wanted to bring this up. So in his 2 years, and once again, this is very limited. He started in 4 games last year, started in, I want to say, what was it? I need to look here quick. 2022, I think he started in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think he started in 6 or 7 games in 2022, but his passer rating was 136.5 average between those 2 years. Deacon Hill was 87, Peters was 106, and Stanley was 129. So we have not had a quarterback with a passer rating of above a 130 since CJ Beathard back in 2015. And so we got a guy at 136. And like I said, he's probably going to be the backup. So that is great news for us and for Iowa fans.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think, it's a great, a great get. You can't, I mean, anything is better than what we had. And not like, but here's the bonus, like you said, like the guy has played in meaningful games. He hasn't started full seasons, but he's been in there and he's done better than what you just listed all those names. And
Yep.
some of those guys aren't, I mean, a guy like Stanley, who we think is pretty dang good. I mean, so, honestly, I feel really good about it. I couldn't be happier. And yeah, I mean, a lot of credit goes to Tim because you're right. I don't think if Brian was here, this would even be possible.
I think the biggest loser in all this is probably Marco, because you think about,
Yeah.
okay, you're definitely not going to play this year now, and you're probably not going to be the starter in 2025 now because Brendan Sullivan, that's going to be his job to lose. So
Yeah.
I would say that's probably the biggest loser in all of this. For Cade, I'm sure there's probably a little bit where he's like, kind of like, God, like now I have to compete. Like but I'm sure though he knows the situation. He understands the situation that, we had to do this. We can't put all our eggs in the basket on a guy that's made out of glass at this point, getting hurt all the time.
Yeah.
Like we have to do something. And it's just gonna make everybody in the room better having someone like Brendan Sullivan coming in and just having that quarterback competition. And to be completely honest with you, with what Tim wants to run, it's just from what I've read and what I've seen and just some of the small like plays that we have kind of witnessed at like the spring game and stuff like that. I would say that Brendan Sullivan probably fits it maybe even a little bit better than Cade, just all the fact that he can run the football. Now,
Right.
Cade's probably a better passer, probably more accurate thrower, but we don't really know if Cade will be able to run very well because once again, 2 ACL injuries, different things like that. Like, how do we know that he's going to be able to run? And so if you're talking just like off of running alone, just having a quarterback that can maneuver and run and you do a read option, you can keep it potentially, man, like I'm almost kind of like Sullivan maybe, right? But that doesn't, but I'm also one of those guys where it's like, I love Cade and what he's done at Iowa, just how much he loves being an Iowan and a Hawkeye, that I want him to succeed so bad. I want him to have one final great year at Iowa. So even though, like I said, like, yes, maybe there is a part of me where it's like deep down, I kind of feel like Sullivan would be a better option in Lester's offense. I hope Cade can stay healthy and be the guy for us. And like I said, have one final good year because we would have Sullivan next year. It's not like this is the only year we'd have Sullivan. It's like, well, kind of want to see what he has to offer. It's like, no, well, you'd have him next year too. With Cade, this is your last go around with him. So I hope he can stay healthy. I hope he can play. And once again, if something does happen, we're not in the stands up 70 rows and stressing and being like, fuck, our season is completely over now.
Yeah, I mean, last year when you had Deacon step in, it's like, you didn't really know what to expect. And now you kind of have that with Brendan Sullivan, right? Like he's played in games, in meaningful games that matter, games that he started in and not, I mean, this guy wasn't, he went to Northwestern. It's not like he was going to Fordham. No, not trying to be a shot at Deacon, but it's like, and I know he went to Wisconsin first, but it's like clearly he wasn't good enough to play there, and that's why he was going to Fordham. So
well, think about it. Our backup quarterback that ended up starting last year was a scout team quarterback that never cracked the depth chart at Wisconsin. That is where we were at last year. So anybody that is like, oh, Brendan Sullivan, like what, like congrats, you got a Northwestern quarterback, like not very good. I will just say that is better than what we had last year with a guy that couldn't even crack the depth chart at Wisconsin. And he was starting for us in like 9 games. And we still went 10-2 with that.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, there's people on Twitter that are like, the guy's not like, what has he done? And it's like, what have the Iowa quarterbacks done in the past? Like he's done more than what our Iowa quarterbacks have done in the past, in the last 2-3 years. So when we literally say anything is better than what we've had, we truly mean it. And not, I mean, think about it. Just what was it? Like a few podcasts ago, you were even saying, you're like, I just don't think we're going to get a guy like Brendan Sullivan, a guy who's had starting experience, a guy that might come in to be a backup. Like, it's just too good to be true. You were saying that, and now look where we're at.
Was that about Brendan Sullivan, or was that just like a quarterback in general? Because I think
I'm pretty sure that was about Brendan Sullivan. Yes.
I do remember
that was that initial report of him entering the transfer portal. Yeah. And like he was like linked to Iowa and all this. And
that was more like at the time That was
Yeah.
more just like, oh, they both went in the transfer portal at the same time. I wonder. And then it was like kind of quiet. And that's when I said, I'm like, there's just too
Yeah.
good to be true. Because why, yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, like,
Like,
why would
why would he come
any,
to Iowa? Like, why would any guy that's, played and started games come to Iowa? Like, where quarterbacks come to die, right? So,
yep,
man, I love Tim Lester. I agree with you. I think I was in the same boat. We both were. We were, he wasn't the sexy hire. He wasn't the hottest name on the market. He was kind of this last second choice, what we thought maybe at the time. And man, he's done in and like you said, there's no games that have been played yet, so it'll only time will tell. But he has done a lot of good things since he's been here since I don't even know when, just a few months. So
yeah, it's like the end of
couldn't be
January,
happier. Yeah,
early
end of
February
January.
is when he came.
Couldn't be happier. Um, and I think we checked off the biggest box that we've needed, all off season, and that's getting a backup quarterback. So or a second quarterback
Yeah, just a quarterback in
that can
general.
compete. Yeah.
Yep.
So
So now, and that's what one last thing I'm going to just share is I think the next thing that we can check off the list, and if we could get this thing, then I think okay, we're good, and that's just getting maybe one more wide receiver, and I would love that. The guy I really want is Eli Green from North Dakota State. The problem with him though, and I said this on the last episode that I feel like Iowa State's a move there because his former offensive coordinator at North Dakota State is now at Iowa State and his receivers coach is now at Iowa State. So it makes sense for him to go to Iowa State, even
yeah,
though Iowa State has, like he probably wouldn't start at Iowa State because they have Jalen Noel and I forgot who else they have, but it just makes sense for him to go there. It sucks as Iowa fans because you don't want to see him go to Iowa State, let alone because you want him. But the more I think about it, like man, like he's probably going to go there. I think he has an official visit with Iowa State this weekend, and I would not be
yeah,
surprised if he commits like the day of the visit. But I will also say this. So I know Iowa's still trying to get him to come to a visit like after the Iowa State visit. So if he doesn't commit and like he ends up taking a visit to Iowa, like I still think we have a decent shot at getting him. But if that doesn't happen, then no, there's no way. And so where do we go from there then? I mean, there's still other, and this is what's different with the quarterback position because the quarterback position room, especially in the spring portal window, there really wasn't many options. Like think about if we don't get Brendan Sullivan, like there's really not anything else out there. Like it's a bunch of random, very random quarterbacks. With wide receivers, though, there's at least some other options out there. Maybe not production wise, like Eli Green, or maybe even like a Raylan Sharp that we were trying to
yeah,
get. But like there are guys out there that, put up 300, 400 yards. They might have been at a smaller school like Tulsa or Chattanooga or something like that. But for me, like I just want to get somebody that maybe has that, can provide some depth, can come in. And I don't know if you listened to the last episode that I did by myself, but like I said with Iowa, the one thing that's a little bit different with us is that we don't have to rely on the wide receivers that much compared to other programs because we have the tight ends. So it's not like it's the end of the world if we don't get anyone because we still have, guys that are capable, including, like Caleb Brown. But it'd just be nice to get like one more guy. Like if you told me right now, like here in the next couple of weeks, we're going to get one more wide receiver, such and such name from this school, put up decent stats, I would be happy. I'd be okay, great. Just provides depth, and that's awesome to see. Seeing Jacob Bostic today going to Texas A&M kind of sucks because it's like, damn, we let a receiver go that's now committed to Texas A&M. So apparently,
yeah,
Texas A&M, Ole Miss, they even offered him. Like apparently they saw something in him, and it really sucks seeing him go. But I said at the time, like, kept getting hurt. It's probably the best for both parties for him to just
yeah,
new direction, right? New, and so, but that one kind of is starting to kind of sting a little bit more because you see him going to Texas A&M and you're like, oh my gosh, like what the heck? Like,
yeah,
dang, like I wish, at the time it's like, I did not think when he left Iowa that he'd be going to a school like that. I thought maybe it'd be like one of those things like, whoever the receiver was last year that left us, I can't remember his name right now. I'm drawing a blank, but he ends up going to Old Dominion. So it's like, is that
oh,
really?
Deontay Vines.
Yeah, Deontay Vines. Thank you. Is that really a
Yeah,
big loss for Iowa? Right.
right,
So,
right, right.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
when you heard Jay, or when he announced that he was leaving Bostic, you were like, okay, well, he's probably going to, some other school that we probably, haven't heard of, or
maybe a smaller school, maybe a
smaller
MAC
school.
school or
Yeah,
something like that, or even like,
yeah. So,
or you can continue.
well, I was
Sorry.
just gonna say, yeah. So when he commits to Texas A&M, that's where it's like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah.
So he must be decent, right? I mean,
Exactly.
And I agree with you though. I mean, it stings knowing that that's where he went now. I mean, that's where it stings a little bit more, but I really do feel like he never was healthy. He never was able to find, you know,
Yeah. I think it's
he never be able
best.
to have his ability to get on the field. So I think he needs a fresh start.
Yep.
Sometimes that's just what's needed. So
Exactly. So yeah, so that's the last piece of the puzzle, really, is just finding another wide receiver. We check mark the
yeah,
quarterback. Now it's just getting maybe one more wide receiver. But once again, for me, if we end up not getting one, it's not the end of the world. The quarterback room was way bigger of a priority. Like that was a massive priority. Honestly, like that on like to be completely honest with you, like getting a portal quarterback or not was kind of like a do or die situation for Iowa. Like I really believe that because I really believe that Cade is not going to stay healthy all year. We can believe it, we can want to believe it, but it's just like, is that going to happen? And so for me, it's like we have to land a transfer quarterback. If we don't, like next season, it can be all fun and games, but until something
right.
happens, it's not going to be good. And so now we're feeling a little bit better. And once again, we didn't just get a random ass quarterback that we kept saying, like, please, let's just not just find someone random who's just going to provide depth. Like, we need to get a quarterback that can battle it out with Cade. And then, even if they don't win the battle, they can come in and be a great backup if we need him to. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what we got. We got our wish, Tyler. And now
Yeah, we
we
did.
just have to wait 4 more months until football season because now I want football season to start after, when we get
I
news like
know.
this.
It's like,
So,
especially when it's like kind of like you mentioned on the last episode, it's like that dead period where,
yeah,
something exciting happens and you're like, I want to see it in action. And you're like, oh yeah, shit, I got
yep,
like
I
four
got to
months.
wait.
So,
Right.
but
Yeah,
hey, give some time to prepare, give some time to, learn the new system. And then, dude, I agree with you, man. I couldn't be more excited and it'll only help this football team.
exactly. All right. Well, we will end it there. Thank you guys all for listening. We'll be back hopefully here soon if there's other news that comes out. And we're probably going to do a mailbag one at some point, and we might have some other things in the works here in the next few weeks. But until then, have a good rest of your week and go Hawks.